Are you an established small business owner or aspiring entrepreneur? Would you like professional advice to help your business grow and succeed? Well, look no further. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is the territory's #1 resource to move your business forward. Enjoy no-cost advising, low-cost training, and technical assistance from experts in both the public and private sectors. The VISBDC is nationally accredited and sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration. Visit us at our locations on St. Thomas, St. John, or St. Croix, and follow us on social media at VISBDC. For easy access to all our training and networking events, be sure to join our newsletter and download the VISBDC app. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, here to help your business start, grow, and succeed.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Every great enterprise, from the smallest boutique to the largest manufacturing plant, starts with a single foundational step: the name. Before you can hire your first employee, open a business bank account, or even apply for a business license here in the territory, you have to secure your identity. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on that first essential milestone: registering and maintaining your business name in the USVI electronically. And so our visiting agency is going to go ahead and they're going to share their screen. There is a specific order of operations to doing business in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Many entrepreneurs rush to get an EIN or a business license first, only to realize they haven't cleared the most important hurdle: registration with the Office of the Lieutenant Governor. We are incredibly honored to be joined by the person who oversees this entire ecosystem. Please welcome Ms. Denise Johannes, Director of the Division of Corporations and Trademarks. Director Johannes is here to guide us through the who, what, where, when, and how of the registration process. More importantly, she's going to show us how to stay in good standing, a status that is vital for grants, loans, and government contracts, by mastering the Catalyst online system. Allow me to introduce today's lead presenter in depth. Ms. Denise L. Johannes is the Director of the Division of Corporation and Trademarks of the Office of the Lieutenant Governor. As Director, Ms. Johannes manages the staff, processes, and maintains the government's corporate records of all registered businesses, including sole proprietors, partnerships, limited liability companies, corporations, as well as the trademarks and the Uniform Commercial Code registries. In August 2018, she facilitated and led the implementation of the division's online system, Catalyst, that ushered in a new era for the territory to business entity filings and fees 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. She also conducts training seminars to public, private, nonprofit groups, and the governmental agencies, discussing filers statutory requirements with the division. Ms. Johannes is always willing and ready to participate in any forum that affords persons a better understanding of the function and services the Division of Corporation and Trademarks provides. Prior to assuming her current position, Ms. Johannes served as the Assistant Director of the Division and Contract Administrator for the Virgin Islands Waste Management Authority. Ms. Johannes possesses a Bachelor of Arts degree in mathematics from the University of the Virgin Islands and is a certified public manager. Here's a friendly reminder to place your questions in the chat, and they will be addressed by the presenting team either directly in the chat or later during our question and answer segment. A copy of today's presentation will be attached to the per survey email sent after this live session. We encourage you to take a few minutes of your time to briefly fill out that survey that lets us know how we're doing. This data is essential to us rendering these deliverables complementary to you. So without further ado, Director Johannes, the floor is yours.
Good morning and welcome. And I thank you for the applause. I have a standing invitation with Small Business Development Center, and I am so excited that I get to present to all of you this morning. I have with me today my district manager, Miss Lynn Isidore, on the island of St. Croix. Usually, when I make these presentations, my assistant director, Laura Bedminster, is with us, but she's out of the office today, but she's here with us in spirit. So we're going to move and jump right in. Moving to our first slide, I just have some questions and we're going to put some numbers into the chat. Okay. So I want to know about you because you're attending. Do you have a business? If you have a business, I would like you to say yes. If you don't have a business, I want you to say no. So I want you to populate the chat. Okay. No, not yet. Okay. So I'm seeing I have 2 that have businesses and I have 3 that do not. So that's good. So you're in the right place. So I want to know for those of you that have a business, if you're a trade name, I want you to put a 1 in the chat. If you're a profit corporation, 2. Nonprofit corporation, 3. LLC, 4. Limited partnership, limited liability partnership. So limited liability, limited partnership, 5. Okay. For those of you that are interested in starting your business, I want you, and thank you so much for your responses. For those of you that have not started yet and you don't have it and you're thinking about it, do you have any ideas of what do you want to form? Do you want to register? So you put a 1 if you want to do just a trade name, 2 if you want to do a profit corporation, 3 a nonprofit corporation, 4 LLC, or 5 any one of the partnerships, the LP, the double LP, or the triple LP. Okay. And thank you so much for your responses. This is going to help me to have, okay, so I have one person with 1 and 5. Very good. You would like to form an association and you're not sure on what's your best fit or idea. So when you talk about an association, is this going to be an association that's going to be nonprofit activity? Or is it going to be profit? Because that's not one of the entity types. And you could put your response in the chat. Nonprofit. So that would be a nonprofit corporation. Okay. Final question. What do you want to know particularly from this webinar? You could go ahead and put that in the chat. What do you want to know? Okay. So I have one. I want to know how to apply. would like to know how you could facilitate your desires, not a problem. How to get started, very good. Those are all great questions. More clarification on a corporation and a sole proprietorship, very good. All right. So I just wanted to ask those questions because it's important for me to know where you are in the process and what you're doing. So we're going to move on to the 4 W's. Who's supposed to file, what you're supposed to file, when you're supposed to file, and where you're supposed to file. Like Miss Industrious said, we have persons that are going to the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, the Internal Revenue Service, and doing all sorts of things before they come to the Lieutenant Governor's office. So question 1, that's a very good question, and I'm going to answer that in a moment as I get through my presentation. Sorry. I just looked at the question and then I just lose my thoughts, and I didn't mean to do that. But I'm human. So they go to these other agencies and then they come back to us. So one of the very first questions that you need to ask yourself when you're doing business, if you're going to do business in a name other than your own, other than your given name, you need to come to the Lieutenant Governor's office and register that name. So I'll give you an example. Like, for example, if I'm going to do business as Denise Johannes, I can go to licensing to get a business license depending on the activity. But if I'm going to do Johannes Associates, Johannes Designs, I got to come to the Lieutenant Governor's office and register that name. Moving on to the next slide. So we have this wonderful online system that's called Catalyst at www.corporationsandtrademarks.vi.gov. The simplest registration, it is the least complex, is to submit a trade name. You have to create a user account in the Catalyst system. You select register a trade name, which is different from reserve a trade name. Reserve a trade name is like a hotel reservation. You're just on hold until you get there. You still have to follow up and make certain that you submit that application to register. It is $25 for a sole proprietorship, and a sole proprietorship is one person doing business. It's also the same fee for a partnership, which is 2 or more persons, or a partnership can be made up of 2 or more business entities, or an individual and a business entity. It is $25 for a corporation to have a trade name. It is $50 to register a trade name under an LLC. You can expedite the application by paying an additional $250. When you're on the application site, you select the standard processing and we respond within 7 days. The expedite fee allows that application to go to the head of the line, and we respond to you by the next business day. For your corporations, and I want to make a distinction for the nonprofit corporations. because I don't have the fee there. For nonprofit corporations, their filing fee to form is $25. For the partnerships, the LPs, the double LPs, the triple LPs, and corporations, their fee is $150. For domestic corporations, that's where they start. For the LLCs, minimum $300, and their applications can also be expedited. So the application, when we get it in our work queue, the first thing that we're determining is whether this name is not the same as or so similar to another registration to cause confusion. It must be distinguishable on the records from any other registration that we have on file. Once we have approved the application, we're moving on to what the document that you will be receiving as your proof from the Lieutenant Governor's office. Moving on to the next slide. Thank you. So if everything is fine with the application, we will issue certificates. For the domestic business entities, we issue what is called a certificate of formation. For entities that are foreign, meaning they are registered in another jurisdiction and they register to do business in the territory, we give them a certificate of authority. For trade names, we have the trade name registration certificate. These are not the only documents that you're going to get back in your email. You're also going to get a copy of your applications. For the corporations and the LLCs, you're going to get your articles. For your partnerships, you're going to get your certificate of registration, your statement of qualification. For your foreign entities, you're getting your statement required to do business. You also get a letter from the Lieutenant Governor letting you know that you are registered. For your business entities, when your first report is due in order to maintain your registration. You also get a similar letter for the trade names where the Lieutenant Governor is letting you know that your registration has been accepted. Feel free to put any questions in the chat because I am reading the chat. Now, after the Lieutenant Governor's office tells you that you own the name belongs to you because you have any one of these certificates along with your documents, and it's going to have his signature on it. Moving on to our next steps after registration. IRS. This is an important function that we need to make certain that you apply for your EIN, your employer identification number, or your tax ID number. Good question. I am talking about IRS. IRS is the federal agency that issues the employer identification number. IRB no longer issues that number. You're able to go online and get that application and submit it. Apply for your EIN online, and you're able to get that number at the end of your application submission. if you're a profit entity. So nonprofit corporations do not do this next step. Interact with the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs to get the business license. This is an extremely important part. Once you're registered with the Lieutenant Governor's office, you cannot just open your doors. You go through registration, followed by licensure. Once you have that business license in your hand, then you can complete or begin your operations. So this is why they are known as step 2. And they have a process. Their information is also online for you to apply for your business license. For small businesses, we have what is called the FENCEN.gov beneficial ownership information that we are disseminating on behalf of this federal agency that's under the U.S. Treasury. Before President Trump came online, this was a requirement as a result of the 2021 Corporate Transparency Act. We have went through quite a bit of iterations trying to pull all of this information online and getting small businesses in any one of the states or the U.S. territories to notify businesses concerning their requirement to register with FENCEN. Since President Trump came online, that application has ceased. The law still exists, but they're not making it a mandatory reporting requirement. There is a question in the chat, and the question is, so do we need an EIN number before applying for a business license? And that answer is yes. You will also, if you're going to have employees, for the corporations, for the LLCs, for the LP, the double LP, triple LP, yes. If you're a trade name and you're going to have employees, you're going to do activity, you still need to apply for an EIN, even if you're a sole proprietor or a partnership with multiple persons in your business. Very good question. Moving on. As a result of being registered with the Lieutenant Governor's office, there are annual maintenance requirements for you to maintain your registration with the Lieutenant Governor's office. The deadline for the business entities is June 30th. And they have either an annual report, a franchise tax report, financial statements, and a fee or tax, depending on the type of entity that it is. So we're going to start first with the nonprofit corporations. They have an annual report along with a true and correct balance sheet, income statement for the last fiscal year. The annual report fee is $25. When the report comes into the queue, and when the report comes into the queue, we are going to determine whether the balance sheet is correct, meaning does your total assets equal your total liabilities and your fund balance or your net assets. Nonprofit corporations should not have any information on there about capital, about paid-in capital. Nonprofit corporations do not issue stock. They don't have shares. Profit corporations have that. Partnerships have partnership interests. That's the LPs, the double LPs, and triple LPs that I'm talking about. The LLCs have members' interests. For profit corporations, they are required to file a franchise tax report, annual report, a true and correct balance sheet and income statement for the corporation's last fiscal year, and their minimum franchise tax fee is $300. There is a maximum that the division can collect based on their capital and their paid-in capital, which is $150,000. For the partnerships, specifically the LPs, the double LPs, and the triple LPs, they file an annual report and a fee of $150. There are no financial statements that are included with their submission. For limited liability companies, they file an annual report along with a minimum fee, annual report fee of $300. Limited liability companies may submit a true and correct balance sheet and income statement. But the report, if they don't submit a financial statement, the report will and can be, sorry about that. The report can be approved without the financial statement. The nonprofit corporations, profit corporations, and LLCs, their documents come into our work queue. So we are reviewing it. The team is reviewing it for compliance. If the reports comply, we approve. If they don't comply, we return it and state the reasons why for the non-compliance. Filers have 60 days by which to make the corrections to the report and submit it again. Any of these reports, with the exception of partnerships, can be expedited for an additional $250. We're still holding to the same standard turnaround time of 7 days. During the month of June, the reports come in, and that's our heaviest reporting period. The time for processing is usually extended about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the volume, especially if you're going to file on June 27th. It's going to take quite a bit of while for us to work through our log of filings. We process them in order of receipt, date and timestamp when they come into the work queue. The partnerships, their reports, because they don't have any financials attached, once you submit the annual report, they are automatically approved. That is a similar process when we have the trade names. Trade names are renewed every 2 years at $100, 6 years at $300, and 10 years at $500. In the last 2 years, our senators have approved legislation to add the 6 years and 10 years for persons who want to renew their trade name. So let's say if I was supposed to submit a trade name registration today, and I submitted, I got my trade name registration back, it's going to have 2 years. Within the window of 6 months before the expiration date, you're going to receive renewal reminders. Okay? You can go in that period and select 2, 6, or 10 years. If it is late, and we do give you grace on the back end for your trade name, 6 months after the expiration date, there's a $25 late fee for you to submit. For the partnerships, once it's late beyond June 30th, there's a $25 late fee. For the LLCs, when they're late beyond June 30th, there is a 20% of the fee. That's the penalty, which is if your tax is $300, you're paying a penalty of $60, and then you're paying a 1.5% monthly interest that is compounded annually. For the corporations, same thing with the penalty of the 20%, but their interest is at 1%. Nonprofit corporations are not penalized for filing late. I must also state at this point that any of these reports, and there's a question, what is the earliest that you can submit your report before the deadline? January 1st of the current year. So we start to send out reminders from January 1st. Our second reminder is April 1st, and our last reminder is June 1st. I hope that answers your question. After you have submitted your reports and they come into, thank you. After you submitted the reports and they come into the work queue and you're submitting your reports early, and I have to say this early, okay? You will still be in good standing up to June 30th. Your report, the system is looking for that June 30th report. So we give you and afford you the opportunity to file a report before the due date. But that report is not needed to determine the status of the entity before June 30th. That report that you're submitting is needed to maintain the status after June 30th. We're going to move on to the next slide. Trade names. Once you have the trade name registered with the Lieutenant Governor's office and you have renewed it, we issue what is called a renewal trade name registration. During that process, in the renewal registration, you have the ability to change only 3 things. 1, your mailing address or the company's mailing address on the trade name registration. And 2, the principal location and the mailing and physical address of where the trade name activity is being conducted. You have a sample of what that certificate actually looks like. And I want to make it absolutely clear. Certificates of good standings are not issued for trade names. We have customers from time to time that will tell us, well, they're asking me for a good standing certificate. And we said, okay, fine. You could go online and you could get the good standing certificate. And then we ask the follow-up question, what's the name of your business? And we hear Johannes Associates. We have to let them know good standing certificates are only for corporations, LPs, double LPs, triple LPs, and LLCs, not trade names. Proof of your compliance with the registration process and the renewal process for trade names, that renewal trade name registration. Moving on. For the business entities, we do issue a certificate of good standing. And when we issue this certificate of good standing, it must be requested. For the approved annual reports and franchise tax reports that are submitted, you do not get a good standing certificate automatically. We're showing you what the screen looks like. There is a certificate of good standing that you can choose from. It's letting you know the expiration date. So this is not going to change until July 1 to show that if you want a good standing certificate, after you have submitted your June 30th, 2026 filing, and you want that good standing certificate to have a year period, you must get it after June 30th, once you have an approved annual report online. You notice that there's this message that talks about the payment of these certificates is non-refundable and non-transferable. So, you file your report right now, today, we approve it, and you go online and get a good standing certificate, it's still going to say June 30th, 2026. If you want one that expires next year, July 1. I'm moving on to the slide that talks about questions. And there was one question in the chat that I wanted to, well, there are actually two. I'm going to start first with the one about clarification between a corporation and a sole proprietorship. So, a sole proprietorship is an individual that's doing business. You could do business under your given name. You could do business with a trade name. There are liabilities that are assessed on your business as a sole proprietor. You would pay your taxes under your 1040 and attach the proper schedule. If you were to be sued, your personal assets may be affected. And I think this is a very good point for me to make right here. I'm giving you the difference, but I'm not giving you advice. The people that can actually give you advice are attorneys, and also your accountants. The Division of Corporations and Trademarks, we disseminate information. We cannot tell you, for example, what's the best registration for you to choose, advise you as to when to file. All we can tell you is how to file based on your question. So if you walk into the office and say, I want to register a trademark trade name, and when we ask you what is the name of the entity, and you start to say, Johannes Enterprises LLC Inc. Trademark has its own process. Trade name has its own process. By you saying LLC, that's also different, and Inc. is also different. All of those things tell us we need to sort out what is it that you're trying to do. A corporation is a legal structure. It has its own identity. For our profit corporations, you need 3 or more persons that come together to form it. It's going to have a resident agent. You're going to tell us about your purpose, the name of your business, whether you're going to have officers or directors, what those positions are. There is, and keep in mind, we look at it as a profit corporation or a nonprofit corporation. For your corporation, when you apply to the IRS, you need to elect how you're going to be taxed. You may have heard terms about S Corp and C Corp. Those designations are not with the Lieutenant Governor's office, but they are with IRS. You will do your filings with IRB, which is the local arm. There's a question about, can a company have more than one trade name? Absolutely. One of the companies that I am gonna recall is and I think St. Thomas Dairies. St. Thomas Dairies was a long time registered company, and we had, I think it was Island Dairies on St. Croix. And you may remember the products that they have had, the milk products, the juice products, the ice cream products. A lot of those products were trade names that were actually, in fact, registered with the Lieutenant Governor's office. When it comes to trade names can be, and I just want to share with you, if you want your name, you have to renew it. If you don't renew it, you run the risk of having your name administratively canceled. And when that name is administratively canceled, that name becomes available to the next applicant that submits the application and the fee to the Lieutenant Governor's office. One of the things that we're not going to do is we're not going to pick up the phone or email you and tell you, there is someone here that wants to have your name. You still interested? We can't do that. Once we receive the application and the status in the online catalyst system says administratively canceled, meaning that it was canceled for failure to renew, or it says canceled, meaning that you took an action to withdraw the name, we must give it to the next party. For your corporations, your partnerships, your LPs, double LPs, triple LPs, and LLCs, they may be administratively dissolved. I'm going to step aside with nonprofit corporations just a moment. But the profit corporations and the others that I have named, once you don't file your annual report, we will continue to send out reminder notices that your report is overdue. And by the time that you get to your second June 30th, that entity would be administratively dissolved. There was a question that talked about, and this is by segue, about how to reinstate an administratively dissolved entity. So you can at any time dissolve or withdraw any one of your applications, and there's a process to do that. We are going to suggest that if you're no longer doing business, that you submit whether it's a termination for LLCs, the cancellation for the partnerships, for the corporations, they are, you could dissolve and you could withdraw. The foreign entities withdraw, the domestic entities, domestic corporations, they dissolve. If you have outstanding taxes, the code, the Virgin Islands Code, allows us to administratively dissolve the entities. So you would have to submit what is called a reinstatement for a fee of $25 in order to pay for the ability to reinstate. Your status will change from administratively dissolved to pending restoration. You have 60 days by which to submit all of your outstanding reports for processing and have them approved. When, and you're bringing it current. So let's say I started a business in 2023 and I did not file my report for 24. And I didn't file my report for 25. So, and I want to do activity now. But I can't get a good status certificate because I've been administratively dissolved. So I need to go on the system and I apply for reinstatement. Once it is approved, I have to file the 2024 annual report. That gets approved, go back online and submit the 2025. Because the 2025 is what is needed in order to bring me to good standing. I could then get my good standing certificate, and because I'm paying in March of 2026, I still have another report come June 30th, 2026 to remain in good standing. The law changed in 2018 where if you have taxes, owed to the Division of Corporations and Trademarks Office of the Lieutenant Governor, you do not have the ability to have penalty and interest waived. So if you had an entity, for example, that was formed in 2018 or 17, or even before, and you fail to keep your entity current, you're gonna incur quite a bit of penalty and interest from that June 30th, 2018 filing come forward. And all of those reports have penalty and interest. We have had persons that have asked us about waiving the penalty and interest. which we don't have the ability to do. The Virgin Islands Code must give that type of authorization. Or the legislature must pass a law that says that this entity, taxes, fees, penalty, and interest with the Lieutenant Governor's office are waived. This is why I shared about cautioning. If you're not doing business, don't leave the business open-ended because you're incurring fees. There are closeout procedures with the Lieutenant Governor's office, with the IRS, IRB, DLCA, and you want to make certain that you're not leaving yourself open to having unnecessary charges or fees being levied to you because the business was that closed out. Anyone have any more questions? Comments? Hearing. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to close finally with two things. This screen is our contact information. St. Thomas, 774-2991. St. Croix, 773-6449. We are located at Niski Center on St. Thomas, and we are located at the old Caribe building on St. Croix. We also have our office website is ltg.gov.vi. The Lieutenant Governor's, so that's the Lieutenant Governor's website, but the Division of Corporations website is www.corporationsandtrademarks.vi.gov. Email addresses, and this is something that's very important. And feel free to utilize these email addresses. I do answer by emails. Yes, I receive a lot of them, and I do try my best to get a response to every single person. Even if I let you know that one of my team members, and I do have extremely talented, energetic, passionate team members. My ladies go the extra mile in order to help customers. We listen to you. We provide information. I have a question. Are you going to do another how to file seminar and training? And absolutely. We are right now in the process of, we know that the annual reporting period is coming up. We do intend to do some online training when it comes to that and the completion of the forms. Our next set of trainings, and feel free to email me so that I could put you on the list so that you know when these things are coming. We're going to dive into the demonstration of the Catalyst system. Usually, when it comes to our presentations, we usually do 2-hour presentations, so I get to talk and then demonstrate, okay? So that what you're seeing on the screen is the online system. All of you can go on and search for entities without actually having an account. So you could know whether the entity is registered. You can get their resident agent. So if you have they did something and you want to sue them, you're able to do that. Okay? You see about the administrative canceled? All right, that was a trade name. Okay. St. Croix Dairies. So these were entities that I were talking about. Yes, we still maintain the records. You're still able to get copies of the records as well, with the exception of financials, unless you have a court-ordered subpoena that is served on me in order for me to provide that information. So yes, our next how-to videos are coming. You log on to the system, so you must have an account in order to file. If you don't have an account, you will click on register. You would click on register as a new user. When you submit your reports, you need to be authorized to do that. We are going to provide you beside the slides more information about getting ready to use the system as well. Finally, in the St. Thomas district, and I'm sharing with you, we're at Niski Center and they're having a spring fling tomorrow, Saturday, from 2 p.m. to 7. If you're in the district of St. Thomas, you could feel free to stop by our office. We will be open. We will be giving individualized attention to our customers. So if you have further questions, feel free to visit our office. I do have a request for the same thing on St. Croix. I will have to work and see how we can plan that. The final thing I want to give would be our contact. You have the contact information, and I just want to know if there are any further questions. And you're just seeing Miss Isadora just flipping through the application. And I know it's kind of fast, but we can slow it down and make sure that you understand. So that's not a problem. Any final questions before I turn back over this session to Miss Industrious? Hearing none. Thank you so much for attending, for coming. We appreciate you tremendously. And feel free to reach out to us for any assistance that you need. And we are here Mondays through Fridays. We are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our acceptable forms of payment are MasterCard, Visa, and ATH. Any questions? Comments? Thank you. It has been a pleasure. And right back to you, Miss Industrious.
All righty. Thank you so much for that. It's always a pleasure collaborating with you and your team. So the SBDC does want to give special thanks to Ms. Isidore and Director Johannes for today's session. I'm glad that it was pretty much interactive and everyone was placing comments in the chat. So I'll begin to close by saying the SBDC has so much more in store for the USVI small business community. You can visit our website at www.visbdc.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to the VI SBDC YouTube channel for uploads of our webinars. We want you to download the complimentary VI SBDC app from the appropriate app store. And so with that being said, I want to preview a few of the trainings that we have coming up, just to keep everyone in the know of what's to come next from the VI SBDC. So I'm going to share my screen and take you to our website. We redesigned our website so that it is user-friendly and easy for everyone to navigate. And so when it comes to events, I want you to select the training tab. You go to events, and then it gives you more information in terms of what types of training we offer here at the VI SBDC. So today's training would have definitely fall under the category of business development. And here is where you click to get to the VISBDC registration portal. Our next in-person event would be in collaboration with the VI Apex Accelerator as well as the SBA, and it is a USVI Government Contracting and Matchmaking Summit. So it's going to be held on both university campuses, starting with St. Croix, and then we're going to finish on St. Thomas on May 6th. We encourage you to go ahead and register. And how do you do that? You go to the VISBDC registration portal, and you want to make sure that you are previewing all of the events. Right now, we're just going to focus on live, and then you hit all so you don't just get one center at a time. And when you search, all of the events that are to come will appear. So April is Financial Literacy Month, and so therefore we are going to focus on financing, loan packaging, cash flow, accounting, credit, being ready to accept loans, what the USVI EDA has to offer for entrepreneurs, definitely ending with you guys having a strong, a well-written business plan. So we encourage you to go here and see what's to come. We have some stuff coming up in terms of marketing and SCORE, which will be another asset in terms of you seeking mentorship. So I'm going to stop sharing, go back here. We don't have any more questions, but I want to say that we will be in attendance as well tomorrow at the Niski Spring Fling Block Party. So we'll be on site for resources. And if you need to have a conversation, we can definitely point you in the right direction with whatever you need. So once again, thank you to our resource, our long-standing resource partner, the Lieutenant Governor's Office, Division of Corporations and Trademarks. It's a pleasure to have you here and give this informational session. Our audience was really pleased with the information that they got today. So on behalf of the entire VISBDC network, compliments of State Director, Ms. Karen Jones, we want to thank you for your attendance and wish you a productive rest of the day. Bye, everyone.